Hi everyone, this is Wednesday's video. As you can see here, it says that we should be talking about structure, topic and concluding sentences, and showing versus telling part 3. We've already talked about structure last week. That's where the outline comes into play. Topic and concluding sentences, I've been commenting in your writing responses on these heavily, and also we have mentioned them in a video before, and showing and telling will be better grouped with the introductions and conclusions. So because of what I've been seeing in your writing responses, we need a little bit more help with sources. Only one person so far is actually integrating sources 100% correctly. So I'm going to take you through more specific examples, and hopefully in your stakeholder paper drafts, which are due on Friday at 11:59 p.m., again on eCampus, hopefully by then I will see you guys implementing some of the methods that I'm going to show you today and that I have previously shown you. All right, so for integrating sources, when I say this, I mean the 3 steps to source integration. They are on your integrating sources handout, which, just to remind you guys, introductions. So I've already mentioned that. I've already brought up the templates. I'm not going to bog you down with that again. The second part is to quote, summarize, and provide an in-text citation. We're going to talk about those a little bit more today because some of you are still struggling. And then the third part, which I think is actually the hardest part, is the connection to your paper or your paper's argument. So fill this out. You have already done it for Tuesday, and then the topic sentences and concluding sentences activity you'll do for today in your Wednesday free write. But from this, I will provide a little bit of feedback. I've been having some internet trouble from the storm on Tuesday, so I'm trying to get all that fixed while teaching an online class. For the time being, though, let's look at some sample paragraphs from the sample papers that you have already read, or you've read at least one of them for homework a long time ago. And we're going to look at how they use sources and if this author could do anything more to make this completely correct. All right, so I have 4 examples here, and we're going to start with this first one. So instead of reading it out loud to you guys, I'm going to let you take a minute to read it and then think about how this source is integrating, or how this author is integrating source information. Okay, so this paragraph is not perfect, but it is a good representation of source integration. So you'll notice that this paragraph does not start with a quote. That's one thing you should not be doing. Don't start your paragraphs with a quote, because this is your topic sentence, and your topic sentence should provide some sort of transition and then the topic of the paragraph and your own argument. If you have a quote instead of your own words, then you cannot present your own argument in a topic sentence. That's the reasoning behind why you should not include a quote as your topic sentence. The second sentence, however, would be a nice place to start including your research, as this is where your supporting details and evidence comes into play. So the author here said according to, which is one of the template phrases you can use to introduce source information, according to thejournal.com, and then he explains thejournal.com, which helps us as readers understand its credibility and or why it's relevant to the paper. Then we have the quote here, which, let's actually highlight these in different colors to give you guys a better visual representation. So here we'll say is the introduction. Here we'll say is a little bit of explanation about that source. This is the actual quote itself. Here's the in-text citation. And then this here is the source explanation or connection to the paper. Okay? So again, introduce the source. Tell us why it's credible. Have the paraphrase or the quote, the in-text citation. If you don't have this, that is plagiarism. If you have not, if you don't have the yellow or the purple, it's plagiarism because you're basically saying that this is my own information. You're not specifying where you got this information from. And then this blue part here, the dark blue, is really showing or proving your mastery of this information. I can not only do research and incorporate it ethically into my paper, but I can also connect it to a larger argument that I am proposing and that exists outside of this one source. Okay? So, the one thing that is a little confusing when I read it is this according to. I thought he was quoting again. So in this one specific case, you might use a different template form. So the journal.com and online says, demonstrates, argues, claims. You can put any of those quotes or any of those quote markers or attributive tags right here in this space. All right, it's an online journal, so there are no page numbers. We just have the author here, and then I would go down to the Works Cited page and make sure that the author's last name matches the citation here, or the in-text citation. Another example. So go ahead, again, read it, and then we'll talk about it. Okay, so again, this example has some flaws, but the student is demonstrating most of the techniques that we're talking about, so it's pretty strong. And these are pieces of paragraphs. These are not the full thing. The full things are in the sample papers that you can read online. So this is his personal stakes section, and yes, it is a little bit pointed, as in this student was a really good student. He was not trying to suck up or anything like that, and it reads pretty honest to me. So all of this is his own word. All of this comes from his personal experience. He is telling most of it, so a little bit of showing description might be important here. 66 human teachers, that's a really good detail, and their influences, it plays in a little bit here, but it is mostly telling. He incorporates research in his personal stakes section, so don't just think that you can only use research in your opposition and my team sections. You can, as he demonstrates, incorporate research in your personal stakes as well. So he again uses according to, and there are tons of ways to do this, so you don't need to always just have according to so-and-so in your papers. It's a good template or a good format, but you might mix it up, be a little more daring with your research. So according to Wendy Kopp, and then we have who this person is, why that matters. He repeated here, so we don't need states. According to so-and-so, the founder of blah. Then the quote itself. And the next part here would be an in-text citation. The reason why he does not need another citation here is because he has already specified who is saying this quote. So you don't need to repeat information here. This would not be This would not be incorrect, but it's just redundant. So you don't need to add this information here again because it's already clear in the sentence who is saying the quote. All right, and then he started to talk about the connections between teachers and students and why a human teacher is important, because parents are often the only kind of moral compasses or people involved in young children's lives if you don't have a human teacher. So he goes on and describes that in the full paper, but for the purposes of this activity, this is really all you need to know. So we have one example of how you can incorporate all of the information, all 3 steps to source integration. We have another example that leaves out the in-text citation, but it's clear up here. And then let's keep going down to the last 2 examples, which are not quite as strong. So go ahead and read this. We'll talk about it. Okay, so with this example, it has a couple of more important errors. So the thing that I have been commenting on most of your drafts is when you paraphrase a source or summarize a source, you need to indicate where the source begins. So from this example, I think right here is where this source Hadaway begins, but I'm not for sure. So again, use those introductory statements according to so-and-so states, so-and-so argues. There are a ton of them on the templates that I've provided for you. This signals to me, the reader, that I am dipping out of my own words, which I would call these the author's own words, and then this is part of the source information. Again, it is a summary or a paraphrase, but you still have to attribute those ideas slash like whatever the arguments that the author's making, you still have to attribute those to the actual author and not yourself. So Hadaway would be what you would put here. This author used APA. Some of you are doing that, so I pulled this example to show you not to use APA, use MLA because this is a humanities. So this would be correct if we had, again, something here that signaled where the student is starting the paraphrase. All right, for our last one, go ahead and read it and we'll discuss it again. All right, so this is probably the worst example that we have thus far, mostly because the student didn't proofread very well, and also it doesn't have any sort of introduction here at all. So I recommended to a lot of you to read your work out loud so you can catch those errors. This here, the student could probably caught if she had read the paper out loud. So with this, I'm seeing this as well in some of your papers. The first time you mention a source, or the first time I know that you are talking about a source, should not be in the in-text citations. It should be in the according to, or the introduction of the source. That's why it's called an introduction. And then, again, if Greenwood is the only information you put here, like according to Beth Greenwood, in this case, you do not need to repeat that in-text citation here. The reason why you would have another in-text citation here would be if you had information from like page 2, okay? So it'd be like Beth Greenwood, the quote, page 2. There are no page numbers here, so you just have the in-text citation, no extra information. Okay, guys, so work on those citations, please. This will be important for English 102, the rest of 101, and just college in general, okay? So stick around for Thursday's video.